Hello my dear friends, welcome to Canadian Immigration Channel, and we are of course now making a little bit of projections for the future. 2020 is coming, it's coming much sooner than expected as always. At the end of the year, time seems to be speeding up, and we're looking at the cost of immigration to Canada in 2020. What to expect, what to prepare for. As usual, we are studying for one simple thing. We have to separate two stories. The first one is the actual cost, your expenses, those money which you're expecting to spend, and of course an amount of money which you're supposed to have in your pocket if you're looking to immigrate to Canada. Okay, these are your money. These are those money which you would take with you when you arrive to Canada, when you start settling up in here. And we recorded previous videos on how to expect, what to prepare for, how much money you are supposed to spend before you find your first job, how to do it, and so on and so on. So the amount of money which you are supposed to spend, of course, depend on your family composition. But if we're looking at a family of three, for example, in that case, we probably will have to make sure that we have enough money to pay government fees. We have to have enough money to pay for educational credentials assessment. Most of the programs, whatever you're immigrating through one of the pilots or you're immigrating through one of the federal programs, skilled worker, skilled trades, and so on, would require you to undergo educational credentials assessment. You have to have enough funds in your pocket to go through medical assessment for the whole family, right? Depending on where you live and where you are planning to undergo that medical examination, doctors would be charging differently, and so on and so on and so on. So roughly, I would say that you're supposed to prepare for yourself to spend something close anywhere between 3,000 to 5,000 Canadian dollars in terms of the fees, in terms of translations, notarization of documents, and so on, for a family of three for immigration to Canada. I'm calculating here the fees, medical expenses, educational credentials assessment, as I said, notarization, provided that you're applying on a paper, there would be postage fees, and so on and so on. Whenever we're talking about government fees, I would include here two of them, right? Federal one, application processing fees, right of the permanent residency fee, and I'm also talking here about provincial ones, because not everybody will be immigrating through the support of the federal government directly. Many of you would be going through provincial immigration, and when it comes to provinces, it could be something up to $1,500 when we're talking about Ontario provincial nomination, right? So Ontario will be charging you $1,500. There are provinces which are charging far less, but what I'm trying to give you an idea of is like what your expenses are. So roughly you're looking at somewhat close to 3,000 to 5,000 Canadian dollars in terms of the fees which you will be spending undoubtedly if you're looking to immigrate to Canada. Now, second part of the story is the fees which you're supposed to have, or money which you're supposed to have in your own account if you're looking to immigrate to Canada. And there is a mixed match in here with respect to which program requires what, how much money to have, how much money not to have to show, and so on and so on. Right? If we look at the matter from the easiest point of view, from federal skilled worker program, there, depending on your family composition, you would have to have X amount of money in your pocket. We're talking, for example, about 19,390, if I remember it correctly. I might be wrong, right? Like, I mean, I'm getting old already and something might slip out of my mind, but as of now, we're looking at something close to $19,500 for a family of three, which you should have in your pocket if you're looking to immigrate to Canada. This is calculated by the formula of LICA, low income cutoff, divided by 2. So this is the low income cutoff for a year for a family of three divided by 2. And this is the amount of money which you're supposed to have in order to immigrate to Canada. We spoke before about the matter where you actually have to have this money in your account when your invitation to apply has arrived and you're submitting your application for permanent residency. But as we said before and in the previous videos, the matter of immigration to Canada changes. It changes significantly with respect to the pilots. It changes significantly with respect to provincial programs playing more and more active role and actually directing which way immigration will be working, because provinces want to attract people which are in demand in there. Saskatchewan is a different story from Manitoba, and Manitoba is a different story from Alberta. Now, most of the provincial nominee programs would be looking at the same amount of money which federal government requires. So whenever it comes to provincial nomination compared to, for example, previous years when Saskatchewan had its own greed of an amount of money which you have to have, nowadays Saskatchewan, equally to Alberta, is saying that, look, you have to have the same amount of money, which federal government dictates because it's quite realistic, so you have to have this money in your pocket. Why I'm emphasizing the fact of provincial requirements is that, for example, for Saskatchewan, you have to have this money at least 3 months in advance before you submit your documents. In other words, you have to be proactively looking at your immigration and thinking about it if you're seeking for nomination from Saskatchewan 1 month before this invitation to apply from Saskatchewan arrives. Money should be sitting in your account because you are given 2 months to prepare your documents and submit them to Saskatchewan. That's where these 3 months are coming from. Now, when it comes to Alberta, it's much easier, but you still will not be able to demonstrate to them your apartment's valuation, for example, your house valuation, in terms of the proof of funds, which still works, by the way, for New Brunswick. Now, when it comes down to pilot programs, it's slightly different depending on where you go and which pilot it is. Requirements might be easier and substantially easier if it's Atlantic, if it's rural pilot. If we're talking about provincial pilots, it's a different story. We have a huge mess of these pilots right now, right? Because BC TAC pilot and Ontario TAC pilot and the pilot of Yukon, which is supposed to be open relatively soon, and the upcoming this municipal pilot, they're all quite different in terms of how much money you would have and how to demonstrate this amount of money. So my recommendation in this regards would be to have X amount of money in your account, and when I'm talking X, look at the federal requirements, okay? Unless it's undoubtedly difficult for you and you are not able to have this money in your pocket, well, federal requirements would probably be the threshold which would be needed for you in order to immigrate to Canada. And I would strongly recommend you, when you're settled, when you have your express entry profile, when you understand that, okay, I probably need extra support from provinces, at that stage, make sure that you deposit money in your account, your wife's account, split them by 2 if you need to, right? But make sure that money is sitting in your account so that you would be able to demonstrate them for Saskatchewan, you would be able to demonstrate them for Nova Scotia, and so on, whichever comes, so that you are able to immigrate. Because the worst case scenario, which we had this year with a couple of clients, Saskatchewan invitation comes absolutely unexpectedly, bum, no money in the pocket, right? What happened? Well, we were expecting to do this and this, but look, you told me that you got it. Yeah, but you know what? We withdrew this money a couple of weeks ago because we needed them for the family matters. So what we had to do, we had to cancel our application for Saskatchewan. We had to deny this invitation to apply and resubmit the application from the 30 days after money were deposited into the account. So make sure that you don't make such mistakes. If you would like to consult more on a matter of how to prepare yourself in terms of the cost, in terms of the fees, where to go, where not to, right, and what could be the underlying expenses which you're about to expect if you're planning to immigrate to Canada, feel free to drop us a line and we'll be glad to help you out.